Hello, welcome to another edition of On the Spot. I'm Christopher Taylor of My Astro Chris, and you're back on the spot with me. So, welcome to June 2011. Today is June 2nd, 2011. Today what we'll be doing is going over the chart of a 42-year-old female. Okay, and so here her natal chart, just to start out. And what we're going to focus on is this kind of triangle, this what's called a T-square that's in her chart. And you can see the circles there. We have a Saturn-Moon conjunction up top, right on the midheaven. That is opposing Mars at the bottom of the chart. And then we have Venus over in the 6th house, which is kind of forming the apex of this T-square. So this is the area of her chart that we want to focus on. So what does this mean in her chart before we talk about how it's being affected, how it's been affected? So this is a pretty intense T-square to have, especially with regards to personal expression. Okay, if we just take this Saturn-Mars opposition component of this, I have this in my chart actually, so I understand how this feels. This is like a constant sense that you're being held back from what you want to do. Mars is kind of our doing energy, Saturn is our brakes on the doing, and it always seems like other people are in the way of what we want to do. And it starts out in early life with a sort of parental sense of always being restricted, and there's no sense of freedom. There's a sense of lack of freedom in that sense. The reality, I mean, in my opinion, is that this is a reflection, this is a projection in a way for us to get at that within ourselves. So there's a sense of holding oneself back. And this is how we see it, is through relationships with others. So this is something she would experience quite a bit. We throw the moon up there with Saturn, and now we have this real sense of wanting to emotionally express, but always feeling like there's resistance or suppression to that. Like, there's a mixed message there of get excited, but don't be too excited. Okay, it's really fun, but don't have too much fun. Okay, this is the kind of aspect this would result in. And with Venus here as the apex of this grand triangle here, this T-square. Anyway, Venus is in the 6th house. The 6th house is work and service. People with Venus in the 6th will often feel themselves more comfortable following than leading. Okay, whereas this stuff in the 10th house here, it's Saturn in the 10th house. If we just take that, that's a real urge in this life to gain a sense of recognition and leadership, okay, at some point. Yet it's battling this Venus in the 6th, which just wants to serve, wants to be subservient in some way. You think of the Venus in the 6th as like the secretary, and the Saturn in the 10th as like the queen. You know, there's a very big difference there, and that's a battle within her. Okay, and so we'll leave it at that. That's just kind of, we can go a lot deeper than that for sure, but that's going to set us up to understand what part of her is being affected right now. And so we can go back to October of 2010, and what we're going to do is span the time from early October 2010 through about early October 2011. It just so happens that this 1 year period is when this T-square is pretty active in her chart. And the two planets we want to focus on are Saturn and Jupiter. And we can see Saturn circled on the bottom of the chart and Jupiter circled on the top of the chart. Okay. Okay. And so these are the two planets that are setting up those points as we speak. So going back to October of 2010, early October, this is when the planet Saturn on the bottom of the chart moved across and into her 4th house. And when it did that, it immediately opposed the moon up above on the 10th house cusp, and it conjuncted Mars on the bottom of the chart. Okay? And so right away, in around October of last year, October of 2010, this would have ushered in a real awareness of the family upbringing, and from her perception, how it keeps her back from taking a more leadership role in what she wants to do with herself. Not about how she leads what she's supposed to be doing, what the expectations of her are to be doing, but how she actually takes charge of her own life. And so there's a real sense of heaviness in the family life in some sense. Sometimes this can be manifested with problems with the physical home itself. You know, a sense of the rootedness coming undone and having to reorganize the rootedness, so getting to the bottom of things, okay? And so this initiated things here in October, this awareness that something has to be fixed with regards to the home, whether it's the actual physical home manifesting that, or the realization that, yeah, you know, my upbringing was great for what it was, but how is it holding me back from who I am? And that's a big question that came up and started to come up in October. When Saturn then kept moving, it started a square around January of 2011 to that Venus in the 6th house. And this was this awareness that, you know, what she might be doing with herself on a daily basis might be a little more subservient than she would like. And that awareness would come to her around that time, starting that time. The Saturn, those Saturn aspects I talked about, with Saturn at the bottom of the chart, right on top of Mars, opposing the Moon and squaring Venus, this whole thing is still occurring. Saturn's been retrograde since January. It's about to go forward here in June, mid-June, okay, about June 12th or 13th, something like that. And this will be when steps can start to be taken, whatever the awarenesses that have been brought up since October, the steps can be taken to actually push things through. So this summer into the fall of 2011 is really about taking those awarenesses and doing something constructive with them, okay? And all the while, Jupiter up top on the top of the chart entered the 10th house around early March, and then in mid-March it conjuncted the Moon up there, it opposed Mars, and then it went ahead and squared Venus in April. So early to mid-March, right on through about early to mid-April, this 1 month, about 4 or 5 week period would have been very important, and it's important for her to understand what went on in that period, because it reflects the general theme that I already talked about with Saturn and the realizations. But in this case, it was a sense of opportunity. An opportunity where Jupiter is in the 10th house of career and this recognition that she desires on some level, and this showed a real sense of how it can be done. So March, April was the glimpse into the future. The sense of, well, here you've been dealing with this since October, well, here's what you can do. And then whoosh, kind of goes away. And so she got a rare glimpse into what the possibilities were around March or April. And things are still building from that. And now when Saturn goes direct here in June, from about mid-June right on through September, this is the finishing point. So summertime this year is really finishing up this theme and taking concrete action. And then it's all going to be capped off here when we get to early October and Saturn opposes itself. So Saturn is going to be at the bottom of the chart opposing where her natal Saturn is. Saturn opposite Saturn happens once every approximately 30 years, and it is a culmination of what she's been building the last 14 years or so. So it is now time, essentially, when we get to October, to say, what are you going to do? Do means, you know, on a daily basis with yourself to reflect the authority that she wants to expel, and less of the subservient person that she has allowed herself to be. And if we look at when Jupiter first stimulated Saturn up there, that would have been approximately about mid to late April. And so what was going on in mid to late April could give a clue as far as where to focus this energy. Okay, so look back again, starting October 2010, this is when the themes came to being. March-April time frame was a real opportunity to see what the possibilities are for the future, and then the summertime into the fall is the time to wrap things up and put the capstone on it by early October, and really say, you know, now or never is really the feeling of early October for her. So that about wraps it up, and so that's been another edition of On the Spot. Again, I'm Christopher Taylor of My Astro Chris, and if you're interested in your own On the Spot, you can contact me through my website at myastrochris.com. And I do readings for individuals like this, but in a little bit more depth, as well. I do things over the phone for people out of my area. My area is Sacramento, California, but also in person in Sacramento. Also for couples. In fact, I've just launched a new component of my business, myastrowedding.com. I urge you to check that out if you get a chance. Just a list of some services that might interest you if you're into something a little bit more alternative for your wedding plans, including bridal showers, wedding receptions, etc. Okay? And then finally, I actually work with businesses, small to medium-sized businesses. I'm consulting and making sure that these businesses are aligned with their intention, first of all, and that the people within that organization are at the full level of understanding to be compassionate about their differences and to maximize productivity based on those differences, okay? And so again, contact me through myastrochris.com. Look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.